Dr. Damodaran, on India-Japan cross-cultural comparisons, revelations from an exercise involving heritage arts. Dr. Damodaran is, of course, is a PhD in economics. Currently a professor at, till recently, he was professor at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. Now he is associated with ICREER.
Please.
ICREER in Delhi. He was awarded the Homi Bhabha Fellowship in 2004 to 7 to work on global commons. In 2012, he was appointed visiting fellow at the United Nations University in Japan. He is deeply involved with Japanese society and culture. And his latest book, a very significant book at that, Managing Arts in Pandemic Times and Beyond, which was published last year in 2022, is on performing arts organizations of several countries, including India and Japan. So, Dr. Damodaran.
Thank you, Chair. There is a conspiracy, I should tell you. I engineered Dr. Sudha as the chair. Well, we know each other for many years. So people, if somebody says that I engineered this, I will not be surprised. And actually, Sushila engineered the whole thing. So I basically, thank you. I'll do it. Okay. Don't worry. Thank you. So the reason is Dr. Sudha has been a kind of, I have been reading her books. I have been trying to follow arts through her lens, but I understood that I have my own way of looking at things. But to say the least, she has been a source of scholarship for me in my work on managing arts. At Japan, it is not just the United Nations University stint. I was in Japan in IDE, Institute of Developing Economies. My good friend Sato-san, he's also, his name is Hajime Sato. He used to run an amateur school there. And I realized that when I went to perform, he used to show me the fan and walk in a particular way. And I realized that I was too much of a giant to be performing no. You need very stately people, which I was not. But still I tried. And from there, I think it got kindled, some interest in no. But I knew that my expertise would only come from management side. I can't be a performatics expert. I'm not an expert on aesthetics. So I worked on it and I put out a paper in IIM Bangalore. We have an India-Japan Study Center. So I was the only one who wrote something about arts. And others were writing about competitiveness, industry, and all that, my colleagues. So Sushila has this, I realize now, has this habit of rummaging the internet and looking for odd people, and she spotted me. And here I am. I compared Kudiyatam with no. And fully, at the same time, I put a disclaimer that comparisons are for mediocre people. They sit and compare. But I realized that when I went through the literature on comparative methods, I realized that people don't have an understanding of other people unless they compare. So comparisons are odious, but inevitable. So this is the way I look at it. And that paper is there in the website. And here I am presenting something, and not from my book, not from the paper, but something which I am now preoccupied with. It is about nature, technology, and arts in Japan. So I have this bad habit of putting out some abstract and then presenting something totally different, because I get wiser after I write the abstract. And here I am trying to put a few points. I will not take much time, even if it means that the other speaker is not there. I think she's not there, right? Yeah, she's still not there. So I can be a little more liberal about time, but let me tell you what exactly I'm going to present. My thesis is this. This is the main proposition. So you have to read it like this way, right? Clockwise. So what I am trying to say is, which has come out from the previous presentations, Japan has borrowed, Japan has lent, right? And it has borrowed cultural expressions, it has borrowed technology, it has borrowed knowledge. And this is the point I'm trying to highlight. Ambassador Deepa Wadhwa is also here. Diplomacy and cultural exchange were the key tools. So in my IAMB paper also, I have touched upon cultural understanding and diplomacy. But from my own point of view, I'm not seeing as a person, I'm an academic, so I'm seeing it from an outside, as an outsider. So borrowed ideas, which we saw in yesterday's presentations and today's presentations, were always adapted and then put in. Deng Xiaoping is supposed to have said about Chinese characteristics, but Japan always did it. They brought in a stamp of Japanese characteristics. Yesterday's presentation on style, and much earlier in the inaugural session, the Mitsui CEO talked about his version of curry. These are, and then coming back to India, that is the beauty of it, and telling India, you eat this and you will be transformed, right? So that is the essence of how I see it. Now, Japan used technology. Now, I have seen, I've talked to many Japanese friends of mine, and they tell me something very interesting. I'm being a little anecdotal because it is post-lunch session. I had to make it sufficiently entertaining rather than flipping the slide. And I'm used to doing it. 30 years, I was 25 years, I've been doing this entertainment when people don't want to listen to. So Japan has an obsession for technology. Every Japanese gentleman has got and gentlewoman has got a obsession for technology. So my Japanese friend used to tell me once, I went on talking about India. He's a professor he was in Chiba. Now he went to Tokyo University. So he told me, look, at one stage, they lose their sense of politeness, and finally told me, you Indians think of the grand picture, big picture. We just look at some small thing and find out things which nobody sees. And nobody sees those things. And that is our belief. And that's why we are managing to stay afloat in this world. So modest a statement. But technology is, the thing is, it's a technology. But a technology which is customized in a Japanese way, that also has a Japanese characteristic. So now I am coming to the main point, nature. So technology I have discussed, now I have got into nature. Nature, I was associated with the CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity. I was fortunate to be part of the Indian delegation to COP11, as well as the expert committees of the CBD. I always interact with the Japanese diplomats. And this was a time when Aichi Nagoya in 2010, Japan hosted the Conference of Parties in Aichi Nagoya. I happened to go there. Now so we went to Hokkaido and we saw the other side of Japan, the northernmost part of Japan. There, the Japanese diplomats introduced the idea of Satoyama. Sato, village. Yama, basically mountain. That is a way. And the space in between, that's the most beautiful way of looking at, is what the Japanese concept of nature is about. So we look at arable lands, rice is a matter of culture for them. So rice is not seen as arable and artificial. They say that it is very natural. And the mountains are, Shintoism at its best, animism. Shintoism goes with animism, which means every inanimate object for others has a soul in the Shinto scheme of things. So the Japan has this great ability to understand its limitations, unlike many other countries, and adjust to its limitations. So within that, they leave the mountains aside. They don't want to touch it. And then they look at the arable lands. They have to cultivate rice. Japanese rice is a matter of culture. They cultivate it. And then the space in between is what they guard, zealously used to guard. And that is called Satoyama. Satoyama became the buzzword of Japanese diplomacy in 1990s, starting with the Convention on Biological Diversity. After that, Japan, the Conference of Parties came to India. In Hyderabad, we did it. The Japanese delegation came and impressed upon us, take to Satoyama. They had side halls. And it is something which is unbelievably great. So this diplomatic initiative reminds me I am not an expert. I am just one of those who tries to have a pastiche of various things, put it together. Now, in 1980s, when I worked in the Ministry of Environment in Delhi, we used to come across one thing. I used to be in the International Cooperation Division, and I used to come across a term called Fukuoka's one straw revolution. Now, that was organic. Today, you call it organic. The Westerners adopted it as organic. They focused only on rice, but Satayama was always there. So the Japanese diplomats found that, well, this rice idea is not selling much. Why? Because Japan went for a 600% tariff, import duty on imported rice. Then the WTO forums, Ambassador Deepa Vadva will tell, she was in PMO Geneva at that time. 1994, they said 600% duty, WTO, it is absolute protectionism. So the Japanese came out. The European Union was coming out with this idea of multifunctionality, which India is opposed to both, because we thought that this was a way of trying to block our exports. But whatever be the idea, the moment they came out with a more evocative idea called Satoyama, then we understood, the world started realizing that there is more to it than Japanese attachment to their rice. It is close to nature. So this is the nature part. So technology I have looked at, nimble, small, effective, plug the thing. And now arts. Arts is something which I'm still exploring in the context of Satayama. That is my latest research. I should confess that I can follow Japanese, but when I see people like Mr. Jain and Sushila, I get a lot of consolation that I did not learn Japanese language, but I can always draw upon their expertise for this. Now, Japan's approach to technology, Japan's approach to nature, Japan's approach to arts is unique. Sudha Gopalakrishnan mentioned about no. I will just talk about it in the passing. But let me tell you, I am going to only present certain ideas which are occurring to me. This is not a comparative analysis of India and Japan. I did that foolishness. It is behind me. Now I'm focusing on something different: technology, nature, and arts. So let me straight away skip a few slides, like my predecessor. Where is she? She had to skip quite a lot of slides. Not that I have too many of them. I will start with modernization, Japan's modernization movement. I'm not looking into Meiji, post-Meiji, restoration and all that. There was a mission, which I was telling Ambassador Deepa Vadva just now, Iwakura mission. Iwakura mission happened in 1871-73. I believe that is a Meiji period, right? And it was basically a mission comprising of the ruling political function, the elite of Japan, the industry captains of Japan, the politicians of Japan, the members of whatever was the governing elite. They all went on a world tour. Now, this was much, there was no Portugal here at this stage because it is post-colonial system. They went and their mission was very simple. Go and study what they're doing in industry and trade, what the West is doing in industry and trade, political system, how are they doing, and then what is their culture. And in the process, that is the most beautiful thing. This is a subtext which is not very clearly coming out. It was a learning mission, but they taught a lot of Europeans about what is Japanese culture, right? That was the beauty of the Iwakura mission. They went for 2 years, almost 1871 to 73, and studied models. You know what they wanted? They were very clear about what they wanted to pick up. Why is it that the West is doing so well? They found that there was what is called the Protestant ethic, which is basically individualism going with profits. So Japanese idea was to pick up that idea. And then Japan went on, picked up those ideas, and then went on a mission of modernization after that. Iwakura mission comes, submits its report, and after that, the Meiji period is almost overthrown. And then you know that the samurais, right? The elite were dismissed. No, Kabuki suffered a lot. Both of them suffered a lot, but they were revived. That's a separate story. But Japan's modernization received further emphasis after World War II. So modernization drive started somewhere in the 1900s. World War I was a strong provocation. And then after World War II, 1945, 1946, 47 onwards, the modernization drive started, not because the US occupied Japan, but it had its own character. Japan modernized because it wanted to modernize. It was not, it did not modernize because it was told to modernize, right? So this is the way it was looked at. Now, I come to the other main character, Daisetsu Tetora Suzuki, the well-known DT Suzuki, his son and Satoyama. There, I see an interesting trait. Suzuki's book, first time I came across when I was in IDE. IDE has a brilliant library, and I used to pick up. And then finally, I used to pick up, go through it, and then finally the IDE said, "You take this book if you want." There's one more book on art of kabuki, which also not that I knew much about it, but I was fascinated with Suzuki. He was again a monk, turned into a monk, then became a professor. For me, there's only one option to go the other way, from professor become a monk. Well, I have not reached that stage. So Suzuki basically tried to synthesize Zen with Western psychology. So something like the Iwakura mission, post-Iwakura mission development. And his idea was, there is a Western view of the cosmos. There's a Zen philosophy of nature. I think Sudha Gopalakrishnan mentioned about it in the introduction, in her introduction. So I see the Satoyama diplomacy as a reinvention of the Suzuki idea of trying to synthesize both. So the Japanese technique has been borrow, synthesize, and lend, right? This is in terms of the examples I am giving. So the Satoyama diplomacy, as I told you, came up in CBD. They found one straw revolution, and the sanctity of rice will not be established unless ecology and nature is proved. It had Zen influence. It went beyond Zen also in certain respects. I'll come to it. So Suzuki is a major, Suzuki, in my view, I'm making a bland remark, is a Kurosawa of philosophy. Kurosawa was more popular than Ozu as a film director, because Ozu was very traditional. He highlighted the traditional Japanese family, right? Whereas Kurosawa is very popular because he's very colorful and he was acceptable to the West. So this idea is something which I see in terms of what Suzuki did and what Kurosawa was to do in the realm of films. Now let me come to Satoyama initiative. So the symbolism is this. This is too small, because in Japan, we tend to make it smaller. So my slide is also small when I'm describing Satoyama. But it carries a lot of profundity, not because I wrote it. This is somebody else's sentence. Now, Satoyama has two principles. One, Sato and Yama, the place in between. This is a delicate, fragile area. Modern civilization ignores that area. Therefore, the boundaries of cultivation keep on going and expanding into forests. They are very clear about it. Live within the limits of the carrying capacity of nature. And secondly, human beings, this is true Zen, human beings are not superordinate. They're only subordinate or part of this ecosystem. You can't establish yourself as the superior being. So this is the Zen symbolism in Satoyama. Now this is how the landscape looks. You can see you can see the cherry blossom. You can see those hills. I don't have a pointer, but you can see the hills. And above the hills is the Gagan. You can see the skies. And nobody dares to go there because it is full of live nature. Nature is not in it. It's animism, Shintoism at work. And then below that, you have these nice, beautiful houses. Terrace cultivation. I have seen in the outskirts of Chiba when I was there. We went for a rural visit. I've seen it, and neatly laid down drainage systems, everything. This is a model landscape of Satoyama. And this has been recreated in Niigata province, in prefecture. So this, now what happened? Why was Satoyama such a brilliant idea, and why is it that Japan lost out on that? Because of the drive for industrialization. So sometime between 1945 and 1990, there's a massive industrialization drive, assembly line production, automobile industry took on the United States automobile industry, and a lot of things were happening in Japan, right? And this led to destruction of a lot of organic, uh, satyomas. They were all destroyed. Forests were being encroached, and things were getting bad. And Japan was for quite a long time saying, let us save our rice cultivation, because they thought that is only margin left for them. And then they realized that that is not enough. As I told you earlier, the entire ecosystem has to be transformed. So they showcased certain places where it was still there, put a lot of resources, people worked towards it, and this is being showcased to the entire world. This is the idea. So now, recant, if I can put it, 1893 onwards, till 1990, almost 100 years after the Iwakura mission, Japan decided to go back to its roots, which is the Edo period and pre-Edo period roots, which is Satyoma and conservation. So they looked at, we had forests, put new species, they said nothing doing, no exotic species, it will be only traditional species. And then they translated it into a major diplomatic initiative in the international forums. Now, it has cultural connotations. Now here, Watts is one of the most brilliant, all of you know who are scholars, one of the most brilliant scholars who predated Suzuki, right? Suzuki used to refer to him. Now, he says that the landscapes of Japan, which figure in stellar paintings, go far beyond the naturalism of Zen and can convey the wholeness of culture that embraces both the spiritual and the material. See, that material is also there. If you leave it to Zen, that element of material gets a little de-emphasized. Spiritual becomes everything because it's about futility, the nothingness of things and all. And if you look at it, now this is something which Dr. Sudha had mentioned. The No theater, I have watched many performances, I should say with credit, Kabuki. I would have watched more of No and Kabuki than I watched Kudiyatam. But Denkaku, rice field music, and Saragoku, folk art. It's a combination of this that goes into the creation of Ziami's No. Somewhere in 14th century, it was created. It was the idyllic life of the peasant. And if you go through the literature on No, you are all scholars, I'm not a scholar, but the earlier history of No, the particular form which was preserved was entirely no practitioners, no artists, were all peasants. And they came from a Satyama kind of a landscape. Now, this is a speculation which I am trying to work out. Now, this is where nature and arts come together. Now, where is technology? Technology comes. Now, I'll come to this, again back to No. But Kudiyatam, by comparison, was a temple art form. No came from peasant roots. It came from the origins, the real origins of No came from China. It was completely changed, and then transformed into Saragaku and this No, and in an unrecognizable way. Kyogen, most of these stories in Kyogen, I have seen at least four of them between the interlude one and within the performance one. I've seen some of them are drawn from the Chinese stories. But yes, I think she mentioned, story is not important. The plot is not very important. It is Abhinaya which is more important. So we don't really, but there's a skit which they sent after National Theatre, if you go, or you go to the Kita Theatre in Meguru, you will find that there is a small script given to you. And obviously it will be seen that it has some mention about a Chinese village or something from where it is born. But in 2001, unlike Kudiyatam, both of them got recognized as common heritage of humankind in 2001. But the Japan system was different. Our system of taking Kudiyatam was different. Japan's system of taking Kudiyatam was different. And they thought, they went on an offensive on the diplomatic front, offensive in a positive way. They said cultural exchange progress, we'll showcase more of No, which we also did. I'm not denying that it was done. Yesterday, Ambassador Shamsaran was telling me that when he was in Japan, at that point, I think Margi, I don't know who went, there's a Kudiyatam troupe which performed in Tokyo and various places, not just Tokyo, even in Chiba and other places. So we also did it. But the cultural exchange program of for No was very noticeable and very regular. So then the other beautiful thing which happened, this was told to me by my friend, and then I found out a source. It is called the Shinsaku version of No. Now, this aspect I have touched upon in my book. Basically, that's a traditional technique which was being revived after 2001 recognition into the contemporary this thing. So these are the things that on the No front they did. So No, my surmise is its roots are, I know you're showing the time is up, but No could have peasantry roots. No, as a to begin with, that is a matter for investigation. It needs much more rigorous investigation, and that is something which is preoccupying me in the days to come. Now I come to from No, I shift to from classical arts. I am shifting to contemporary arts. Now this is another obsession with me these days, and that is something to do with technology. Everywhere you see technology. Now, how has technology influenced Japan? Every person is a technologist. Even a small boy has got a technology orientation. Now, you know what is technology? It's technology or jujitsu. Jujitsu means skill, right? Know-how is jujitsu, rough translation. Technology is technology and innovation. Now, why on earth should it get into arts? It is getting into arts. Now, if you go to Hosei University, the brilliant scholar of No, I have been interacting with her, Raiko Yamanaka. So Raiko Yamanaka-san she's a scholar, wonderful scholar, and I found among all the articles that she has written, one of the articles applies digital technology to map the movements of a No artist, right, on the stage. Right? The shite on the stage, right? Or the waki in the stage. So I was wondering, why should it be done? It's a technology, it's an obsession. You want to meter everything. Then now this is another thing which is intriguing me. I find that No does not have a tradition of rehearsals. They don't rehearse. They know their meters, they are supposed to perform well. And like Kudiyatam, somewhere in the 1950s and 1960s, No started getting democratized. Amateurs started coming in. And amateurs started, like in Kudiyatam, the other castes started coming in, right? So my surmise is digitization makes it easy because people can measure the movements and see how well you are performing on the stage. There are no rehearsals, not too many rehearsals. The master tells, I have performed, now follow me. There's no teaching in that. Now, this is something which technology is trying to achieve. In performing arts, it's happening. Now, let me come to the other obsession. It's called mono. Mono means material, natural material. It can be extended. Now, that is something with Yamaguchi, is a great scholar. He says, anything which is invisible, I will give a material form to it, and I will apply my technology to it. This is their approach, the broad philosophical approach. Then the other thing is, if you see something which is very large and big, and you find it is good, there should be a compulsive need for us to refabricate it. So again, it is technology, skill at work, but it is for an aesthetic cause. It is not meant to create artifacts. It is meant for an aesthetic cause. So look at Satayama. Current research says edge density we are estimating. After all the Zenism that goes with it, we are trying to see how biotic pressures are happening in that. They are completely digitizing the whole thing. Whereas conventionally, Indians are made to think, we Indians, we think that you bring technology into arts, it destroys arts. So this is the kind of thing that is happening. And this is Miyajima, one of the greatest painters. I have been following him mainly because I saw an image of his work called Mega Death, 1999, Venice Biennale, 48th edition. The Japanese pavilion is supposed, I got some pictures of that. I found that this was put up. It is contemporary art. Biennales are mostly 99% contemporary art. And it was about 2,400 blue LED lamps, right? Representing, it will keep beeping and going out. Very dark passage. Contemporary art, technology. And it represents 167 million lives lost due to war and strife. Miyajima is a wonderful artist, one of the greatest, very evocative artists in terms of work. In 1993, he did something even better from a technology point of view. He put up the trajectory of 3 or 4 cars moving up and down, and then he viewed a pattern and said it is an art form. Now look at the way Yamanaka-san put that, Sansei, put that image of that, no artist movement. There is an obsession to create new. So technology is imported first to as an expression of art. You're using technology. Sometimes technology is used to improve art. This is the way the Japanese things are. So I was sitting and comparing as an aside, Simon Sharma's brilliant book. Simon Sharma, is one of the leading natural historians. He has a brilliant book called Landscape and Memory. It talks about the Romans, the Roman period. The Romans always called it forest. The word forest came from forest, which means the Roman laws do not run there, right? This is exactly what the Japanese society is also, our culture is also talking about. Sateyama will deal with the rice fields, but not the animate hills. It should be left to to nature. So I sum up, but whatever I have discussed, I was trying to see the congruence of technology, nature, and arts. And this is still work in progress. But this is another version of an artist in Sateyama. I picked it up from Kyoto. It is all based on paper cutting and paper art, right? It has come from Italy. Right? This is the kind, but it is an imaginary Sateyama. And you can see the bridges where the railways go into it. Then this is contemporary art. This is the famous Miyajima's 1993 U-car paths, right? LED batteries. You can see the yellow line. One digital battery is going, one car is going. It has weaved a pattern and it's a work of art. So they have converted a technology into an aesthetic, a product of aesthetics. So this is the other one. And this is the famous, which characterized the Japanese pavilion, 2,400 blue LED lights with numbers 1 to 9 twinkling. And it is not a very hard imagination. You can see lights going off, coming back, lives lost, lives gained. This kind of a thing. So this tells you that it can create new expressions, technology to create new expressions, technology to improve the expressions of heritage arts and performing arts. So with that, I come to this one. This is Yoshihara Jiro, another contemporary artist, 1972. Red circle in black, symbol of Zen Buddhism. If you look at the circle, it is oblong. It is not a perfect circle as in the West, right? Because reason is not important. So what I'm saying is, these are my books, because I have to sell my books also. So let me end with this. Thanks a lot. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take.
Thank you, Dr. Damodaran. So if anybody has any comments, and then we could take them up with him.
Has the GPS taken from a Miyajima? Because you showed those lines.
No. It is a digital, actually it is a digital representation. What he did was he took 2 digitally operated cars, right? Automated cars. And these cars were allowed to run, right? It is like the splash paint technique. And it ran randomly, and he created a pattern out of it. And people like that pattern. So here he is seeing art and technology. So that was the point.
What has the modern GPS taken from there? Our GPS
goes back to, madam, GPS goes back to Einstein, basically, which Einstein Einstein got a Nobel. He was desperate for a patent, which is a lower thing. Finally, he got it for a refrigerator. But had he been alive, he would have got it. It starts from the general theory of relativity. I don't think Japan has a, Japan is into it. But they have okay, now Japan, a lot of people say that, information technology, they have lost out on the software side. But they have gained on the artificial intelligence, robotics, etc. Phenomenal. And here, and they also have Nintendo, things like digital application. So they have gained in some ways. They're ahead of other countries in some ways. They lag behind other countries in certain other ways. But nature and technology and arts, I see a strong nexus. More work needs to be done. Yeah.
No, fascinating. I think that's the sort of insight that we were looking for. Thank you so much. In terms of vocabulary, this mono no aware, right? I think that also, in a sense, is a way of looking at nature and human beings, right?
It's a complicated term, actually.
Yes.
Multiple meanings and
yes, that's what I'm saying. It's a question of terminology. The other one is wakano yosai. So what you are saying, the internalization,
okay,
the Japanese. So these two terms and shibui and things like that, they are not easily translatable. And I think this is where your way of sort of looking at these terms, Satoyama, in a wider context, makes a lot of sense. And this manifestation requires
and then translating everything to diplomacy.
That, of course, is a different game altogether. But yes, you are able to connect that to diplomacy, which is something remarkable. Thanks very much for opening up the mind, so to say.
Thank you so much. Thanks.